Happy Friday to all of you. We have our 28th episode of our Here We Grow GBO broadcast, and we are excited to have our special guest. I think everybody in the world already knows who he is at this point, and we have been fortunate enough to be able to have a conversation and really talk about some of the accomplishments, some of the I guess the most special moments in Branch Warren's career, but more importantly, his life after bodybuilding. And for a lot of you athletes who are watching, we understand that, not everybody gets to be on the world stage at one point or another in their career. And this is a gentleman who's been on the largest stage, I think, in bodybuilding multiple times, has had just an incredible journey and an incredible run. But Branch, welcome to the show, my friend.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Well, thank you. And if I could give just a little bit of an intro, to you, when did you start bodybuilding? What was your time and what was your moment in your life where you said, this is what I'm going to do?
Well, I did my first bodybuilding show back in 1991, and as a teenager. So I grew up on a cattle ranch out in West Texas, and we moved to the Fort Worth area when I was in high school. I was a freshman in high school, and about that time, and I came from a school that's so small we barely had enough people to have a football team. And back then, they didn't give out participation awards and all that stuff. You had to make the team. So we moved to Fort Worth, and you had to make the team. And a lot of people tried out, but there was only so many spots available. If you didn't make the team, you got cut. And so I wasn't stupid. I come from the country, but I was like, I probably need to get a little bigger and stronger if I'm going to have a chance at making the team and getting some playing time. So I used to sneak into this. I couldn't afford a membership, so met a kid in the neighborhood who had a membership at this local neighborhood gym, and he'd go in, open the back door, I'd slip in the back door, work out, and leave out the back door. So this went on all summer, most of the summer, and first time I ever met a bodybuilder. Met this guy. He was a huge guy, 280, 290 pound bodybuilder, and national level guy. And neither one of us had ever seen anybody like that before. And of course, he's a big, strong dude. He's got a different girl every week. It seemed like they were all good looking. And so, when you're, 14 years old, you're like, that's what we want to be, right? This big, strong guy looks, he's a monster, all muscular and gets all the girls. And we're like, that dude's freaking pretty cool. So he came up to me one day and he said, hey kid, he goes, you don't know what you're doing, which we didn't. And we just went in there to lift weights. We'd be in there for hours in the afternoon. We didn't have nothing else to do. So we just lift weights, and didn't know what we're doing. He came up to me and said, you're going to get hurt. And he goes, you ain't going to make no progress if you don't start doing this right. And he said, come up tomorrow and I'll show you how to lift right. And my friend looks at me and goes, you going to show up? I go, yeah, man. He goes, man, that dude's going to kill you. I go, man, you're not going to come? He's like, hell no, I'm not coming. I go, I'm going to get big and buff, and I'm going to kick your ass and take your girlfriend. And he's like, whatever. So anyway, I showed up the next day, and I think we trained legs. And I thought I knew how to work out hard. I didn't have a clue. And I think I threw up 3 times. And but I never let him see me throw up. I freaking run in the bathroom, throw up, come right back and do my set. And I never said nothing about it. And of course, I think later I found out he knew I was freaking throwing up. But he's like, if you'd have quit, he goes, I wouldn't help you no more. And so that went on. I think I gained 20 something pounds that summer, just working out right and halfway, not really eating right, just eating more. And made the team, started, had a great season. And fast forward, he came to me and said, hey, you ever think about competing? And I'm thinking, competing? I'm looking at this guy and a couple other guys that are in there. And I'm like, are you out of your mind? I'm like, I'm a freaking little skinny kid. And he's like, nah. He goes, you train for it. I think you could do good. So he goes, there's a show this weekend. He goes, why don't you come check it out? And he goes, they got a junior division, and see what you think. And I went to it, and I was like, all right, man, I can do this. I think if I train for it. He said, all right. And this was at the beginning of the summer. So he goes, you got 3 months to train for the show. He goes, you can do the show, get it over with, and you start, playing football. It's not for 2 days. I'm like, all right. He goes, well, we're going to go to a real gym. I'm like, well, where are we at right now? He goes, this ain't a real gym. So he picked me up. We drove across town. We pull up in this place, and it's a gravel parking lot. The music's so loud you can hear it outside. Big garage doors open. This is in June, and it's probably 95 degrees outside, and no air conditioning in this place. And I see these chicks, man. They're outside. They're squatting in bikinis, combat boots on. These dudes, the biggest dudes I've seen in my life. And he introduces me to the owner of the gym. Well, it's Brian Dobson, owner of Metroflex, and he said, hey, this is kid I'm telling you about. I want him to get ready for the show at the end of the summer. I was like, hey man, I have no money. I can't afford to buy a membership. I said, but I'll clean the place up, take the trash out, work it off. And I just want to train for the show. And Brian said, well, let me look at you. So I took my shirt off and he took a couple poses and he said, I'll tell you what, kid, you just don't worry about paying. He said, you train here and you represent my gym and you win, you don't got to pay. He said, if you lose, you're going to work it off. Well, that was 28 years ago. I still only bought a membership.
You got to be kidding.
That's how it started. And so the side note to this whole story was this guy who brought me over there was Ronnie Coleman's workout partner. His name was Mark. And that's who, Ronnie wasn't pro yet. And, he was already a monster. And so for my first show, I trained with those guys. And of course, they kicked my ass every day. But, you want to be successful, surround yourself with successful people. I couldn't have thought of a better group of guys to be fortunate enough as a kid to be around. And they taught me how to lift. One time I questioned what we're doing and I got slapped in the head, literally. And they told me, they go, shut the fuck up. Don't ask no questions and do what we do. I did. It worked.
Nice. So you started out at an early age. When did you turn pro?
I turned pro in 2001 at the Nationals, November 2001. So I did my first show in 91, 92. I competed as a teenager all the way until I was 19. Then there was about 4 years there I didn't compete and went to school. Put myself through school, worked 3 jobs. Actually, it turned out to be a blessing because I got into powerlifting and did a lot of powerlifting meets because there's no way I was going to be able to do a bodybuilding show during that period of time. It's just, with the school demands of school plus working those jobs. But powerlifting, I could work out 3 days a week. And I trained super heavy, getting ready for these meets, and I was able to build a lot of thick, dense muscle that I later became that basis for what I was known for as a bodybuilder. So, it was kind of a blessing. And so after I got done with all that, I was 23, probably 22, 23, and a couple years later I turned pro. So I got back on the stage. I won the Southwest USA, which qualified me for the Nationals. I went to the USA's, got third in heavyweights. Then 9, 10 months later, I went to Nationals and won and never looked back.
So throughout your career, if you don't mind sharing, what are some of the highlights or what are your 3 major moments, if you were to look back when you were competing, that you can say, wow, I still can't believe that happened?
The 3 major moments. I think winning the Nationals in 2001, because at that point, especially back then, what people don't realize is turning pro back then was super hard, right? So, there was one person at the USA turned pro, one person, the overall winner. That was it. At the Nationals, your weight class winners, you had 6 weight classes, you turned pro, and that was it. And at the North American, I think they allowed one person to turn pro. So as an American, there was 8 people a year turn pro. So, once you turn pro, especially as a light heavy, or super heavy, most of those guys did well, because you matured as an amateur at that top. When you went to the Nationals at USA, you knew usually who the top 4 or 5 guys were going to be. And because they usually, when turn pro in the first try. You had guys like Flex Wheeler, Chris Camille, Kevin, and it took them years of battling up there before they turned pro. But what happened, they matured as amateurs. So when they turned pro, they were really pro bodybuilders. I think now you see a lot of guys turning pro, they don't have pro physique yet. And so, that creates a problem for them when they get into the pro ranks. So, winning that, it separates you from everybody else. And, actually, my training partner for the past 20 plus years is we trained for that show together. He won the light heavyweights. I won the heavyweights. We both got our pro card, and it meant something. And I remember coming home, I was like, all right, now I had this dream since I was a kid to being a pro bodybuilder. And, the moment you win that, I remember coming home thinking to myself, all right, now I get to live my dream. Because everybody has dreams, right? How many people actually pursue those dreams? And of those people, how many actually achieve them? And I was like, 25, 26 years old. And I'm like, I get to live. Now it's what I make of it. This is what I asked for, what I dreamed of. And I made it happen. So now it's time to do it. And I had a blast. I've competed for 15 years as a professional, went to over 60 countries, 48 states, and had a blast. So I wouldn't trade it for anything.
So Nationals was probably your biggest highlight since you said first.
I think that was one of the biggest highlights. You said the top 3 moments. That was a big highlight. I think another highlight was no, I'm gonna answer this with the biggest 3 moments. I don't know if all 3 are going to be highlights or not.
That's okay.
But the biggest 3 moments. So winning the Arnold Classic the second time, was a huge moment for me. Um, I just suffered a severe injury 6 months earlier. I tore my quad completely off the bone. I'm 30 days out from Olympia, so I was about 6.5 months from the Arnold. Career was potentially over. At that time, no one had really successfully come back from it. Some people had had that injury, but came back, but they never really came back and won shows. So it the doctor's telling me to be a year before I could even think about training for a competition and this kind of thing. And I think 3 days post surgery, I was sitting on my couch with my leg propped up in a cast, and I told my wife, I started reading all this crap people writing and saying about me that basically I was over, writing my obituary. And I just got madder and madder. And I told my wife, I was like, I'm gonna do the Arnold. She goes, in 6 months? I go, yeah. And so my wife looked at me and she goes, well, you better start eating. She went and cooked a big plate of chicken and rice and put it in my lap. And that was that. So, Trish is pretty black and white, not a whole lot of sympathy. If you're gonna do something, then do it. And don't cry about it. So I started training, man. I tell people I started my prep 3 days post surgery, for that. And I couldn't walk. And I went to the gym a few days later and I trained upper body, obviously. And I remember going in the gym and my training partner, Johnny, he looked at me and goes, what are you doing, bro? I said, I'm training for the Arnold. He's like, fuck it, let's go. And I remember, I had a hard, I was inclining for 405 pounds that day, like 8-10 reps. And I was so motivated. And I just trained for 6 months literally for the Arnold. And rehabbed my knee and my quad, learned how to walk again. And I started training. And I didn't know until about 30 days out whether I would be able to compete successfully. I knew I'd be able to compete. I didn't know if I'd be able to defend my title. And about 30 days out, I trained and I posed in the gym. And I was like, I can do this. And I showed up and won. And that was a huge accomplishment, highlight for me, because you're going from thinking, potentially it's all over. I remember laying there in the hospital thinking, damn, is it over? This is how it's going to end. And then you overcome that and it gives you a feeling of that self-accomplishment, that you went out and you didn't give up and you did overcome. I think the other moment in my career was in Atlanta, Georgia, when I tore my quad. I walked out of a restaurant, slipped off a curb in the rain, and it just popped right off the bone. And I had a lot of weight on my back and done a lot of crazy things to the gym and had no pain at all ever. And for that to happen, that made me realize don't take anything for granted, because in a second, man, it can all be taken from you. So I never forgot that moment laying there on the ground with my quad ripped off the bone, thinking, damn, a moment earlier, I'm 30 days from Olympia in great condition. I just got second and third at the Olympia, so I'm thinking, had big hopes, and it all got taken from me in a split second. So I think that may have had a lasting effect on me.
Well, we talk about highlights, we talk about accomplishments, and we also talk about, I guess, the lessons learned, which are not necessarily failures. They're masked. Failures are masked in success, because when you said that, you're just doing normal stuff in Atlanta. You step off a curb, and that could be career ending, or that could completely take you off track. What would you say the lessons learned? You said don't take things for granted, especially for new athletes. And we have a large audience of athletes, health and wellness, normal folks who just go about every day, people crushing it in business. What are some of the lessons that you learned from bodybuilding that you still put into business, that your businesses are thriving and accomplishing today?
Everything I have in life and everything I've accomplished inside and outside of a bodybuilding, I owe to bodybuilding. Bodybuilding taught me the hard work, discipline, and the sacrifice necessary to be successful. If you can take those principles that you apply getting ready for a competition in bodybuilding, the discipline to stay on the diet, the discipline to go to the gym, the hard work you put in the gym to push yourself to the limit every single time you go, going on days when you don't feel like it, going when you're hurt, when you're sore, this kind of thing, you get up and you go because you have to get up in the morning, do cardio. I used to get up at 4 a.m. and do cardio, go work all day, go work out, take a shower, go back to work, do cardio at night. And I'd cook 2 days a week, so I had to plan all my meals out for the whole week and have to make sure I had enough food cooked so I could have it with me. And so you live that disciplined, structured life, and you learn to sacrifice and to do without in order to accomplish a goal. And if you can take that and transfer that into other areas of your life, your personal life, your marriage, your relationships with your significant other, or your business, then you'll be successful. And you're most likely you won't fail. And but some guys and girls can they're able to take those principles and apply them in other areas, and some aren't. The ones that are always successful. Rich Kaspari is a perfect example of that. He was a super disciplined, motivated, bodybuilder, and he took all those principles, applied them to his business, and he built a world-class business.
Interestingly, you mentioned Rich, because we're working on getting him on the show as well, which it looks like, if you have any word to say about that, feel free and put it in his ear. But all of his athletes are showing up everywhere. It seems like he's making a big push with really his supplements, his nutrition, and I'm seeing it all over the place on social media. What would you say, and I'm going to talk about your companies here in just a second. Would you say it's easier to be on prep because you're so regimented and disciplined as opposed to being off, or did you continue that after you were off the stage?
For me, competing, I needed structure. That was me. And if I didn't have structure, it wasn't good. So I treated off season just the way I treated pre-contest. The only thing that changed was the diet, basically. I was very disciplined in the off season. Obviously the diet's different. You eat more food, you eat some different food, but I still stayed very structured. I had so many meals a day I ate. I went to the gym, and I had an off-season plan I followed, because in off season is when you actually change your physique and grow. Everybody has weaknesses. When I was competing, I would never admit publicly I had a weakness, but I knew what they were. And the difference was I came up with a plan, and then I executed that plan to bring up my weaknesses so that I do well on stage. You see these guys, they're always complaining, they got screwed, they got this, they didn't. And I'm like, well, why don't you look in the mirror? There's something wrong with your body. Go fix your body, and you'll start winning. And that's usually when you keep getting what you always got, because you didn't change nothing. Change something, do something different, and actually fix it, and you'll move up.
Yeah, you're right. I want to talk about your company. So you finished bodybuilding. I'm going to share this, and I apologize for it not coming up right away, but you had a plan after the stage. And, when I think about a lot of athletes a lot of times they struggle in staying relevant, and they're not really sure because bodybuilding is all they know. One of the things that people respect about you is the brand that you built for yourself. With newer athletes, especially, a lot of times new athletes don't know how to build a brand, and they don't know what they want. And it seemed like you knew exactly what you wanted. So I want to touch on Wicked Cutz for a second, if you don't mind. Where did that start? And can you give us a little bit of a background about Wicked Cutz in general?
So you're very right on that. As a professional athlete, you're going to have a very limited career. Even in your chosen sport, if you're able to make it to the top, you've only got X number of years that you're going to be on top, that you're going to be viable. Age gets all athletes, like it or not. You could be the greatest athlete ever. Look at Tom Brady. He's a 1 in a billion probably, but he's, coming to the end of his career. He's in his 40s, and, it's this year, next year, probably he's going to call it, it's going to be a wrap. Same thing with, Michael Jordan, any of the greatest athletes of all time, Ronnie Coleman. Age gets everybody. So when you're done with that, what are you going to do? Right? So you got a whole lot of living left to do. So the thing about bodybuilding, it's you got those top guys at the top that do pretty good, but you're not making NBA money. You're not making NFL money. So if you can build a brand and then leverage that to stay relevant after you step off the stage and live beyond the stage, then you can use that and build a successful business off of it. And social media, I think, has been a key to a lot of people's success. There are several guys from my generation. There's a Ryan, the Jay, the Kai, me, a couple others that have been able to leverage what they did on stage. And social media is a huge part of that by staying relevant, and then leverage that and run successful businesses. And I teamed up with Scott James, who was the founder of BSN, and BSN was one of the top 2 or 3 largest supplement companies in the world. He revolutionized the supplement industry, with No Explode. And they sold to they were the first one of the major companies to sell to a big company, Columbia. And he moved his family from South Florida to Texas, and we were on a plane a few years back, and sitting next to each other by chance, and he said, "Hey, I always want to work with you." And I was coming. I think I just retired, and we got together, and after we got back from our trip, and went to lunch, and he said, "Hey, let's do a beef jerky company." And I'm thinking, it caught me off guard, because I'm thinking he wanted to get back into the sports supplement industry. And he said, "No, let's do beef jerky." And I was like, I don't know anything about it, but I'm I'm up for a challenge. And I think that's to be successful, whether it's in bodybuilding or business or whatever it is, to better yourself and to grow, you got to put yourself in uncomfortable situations where you don't know everything, where you're not the biggest or best or smartest in the room, but you got to learn to be comfortable being uncomfortable. And if you can do that, you'll grow. It's just like me when I was 17 years old, 16 years old, and I walked in Metro Lakes Gym and I'm around Ronnie Coleman and Brian Dobson, Scott Mark, and a whole bunch of other people in there. They were, these were grown men that were good. Ronnie was on the verge of becoming a pro bodybuilder. A lot of people got intimidated and walked away from it. Me, yeah, I was freaking like, damn, they're going to beat my ass probably. But I knew if I kept coming back and didn't quit, I'd get bigger and better and better and better. And I did. And eventually, after you get your butt whooped enough times, you start handing out a few butt whoopings. And over time, you get better and better at it. So it's the same thing. I'm always up for a challenge, and I want to better myself, and I want to be challenged. So jumping into a new industry that I knew nothing about, I welcomed it, and I've learned a lot in the past 3-4 years. I guess 4 years now, and it's been a fun ride, and I'm still enjoying it. So, before that though, I always had my own business. My wife and I had a logistics company for 10 years. While we were both competing, had a successful business for 10 years. We sold it a few years back. Before that, I had my own gym. So I've always been in business for myself, and even at the peak of my career, because I always knew bodybuilding would come to an end one day. I mean, if I hadn't come back from that quad injury, it'd have been a wrap back in 2011 or 12. So, fortunately, I was able to hang on for several more years and have a lot more victories. But, you gotta, for me, I never understood the guys who, they laid around the house on the couch, play video games, and watch Sports Center all day, and that's all they did. If it was me, I'll be divorced. So I had to get out and work and stay busy. So, the way I looked at it, it's like you got, 20, 30 minutes of cardio, a couple hours in the gym, the rest of the day, let's go be productive and do something. Let's build something so when this is over, you got something to show for it.
You're right. And I think that you built a very successful brand. And if we can touch on that, I did a little research on the Carolina Reaper. Like I think it was an 8-minute video on YouTube that you started the video. And would you say that's the hottest jerky you've ever had in your life?
Yeah. So here's my Carolina Reaper right here.
Let me stop the screen share real quick. Hang on.
All right.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So man, we got 3 the hottest peppers known. We got Carolina Reaper peppers, scorpion peppers, and ghost peppers in here. So we wanted something that was we had organic jalapeno. This is our mega bag, which is open. I sit here and munch on it while I'm at my desk. And so a lot of people said, they love it, but they wanted something hotter. And if I can eat it, it ain't that hot. So I like it's a little spicy, but not. This is a whole nother level. So we said, all right. So we got together and we kind of had a big debate in the office whether we should go with this or not. And I said, well, at the very least, we'll probably get some good content out of it because it's seriously hot. And so we launched it, and you can check YouTube. There's YouTube videos all over the place. People doing the Reaper challenge. People turning red, sweating, people passing out. I mean, people crying. It's at the plant, when we make our stuff, the first bag rolled off, and they want to get a video of me eating it. I'm like, I don't know about this. So I took a piece out, ate it. For some reason, I ate 2 pieces. And it's kind of when you eat it, as soon as you bite into it, it's hot. Then you feel the heat building up. The more you breathe, the hotter it gets. And it doesn't go away when you swallow it. It just continues to build and build and build and build. Well, I turned flush. I had sweat dripping off me. My tongue went numb. 30 minutes later, I'm trying to eat dinner. And I couldn't even enjoy my dinner because my tongue was still freaking burning. And I think I drank about a half gallon of milk and it still didn't have any effect. That being said, it's our #1 seller. People love the stuff. I saw one guy, we were filming, doing some videos with it, and he ate 3 bags of it in about 30 or 40 minutes. And I'm like, dude, you don't have to keep eating. After about the second bag, I was like, bro, you don't have to keep eating this stuff. I'm like, he goes, nah, man, I like it. It's good. And he munched down 3 whole bags of this stuff and didn't even faze him. So Louis, our marketing guy, he'll eat it, but he'll sit over there and he'll have sweat just dripping off him. He'll be flush. And he'll sit there and just keep munching it. It's like torture. It's like self-torture or something. I don't know. But he loves it. It's a great flavor. People love it. But I had those first 2 pieces and that's it for me. I tapped out.
Well, I had your at your show. I've been to your show every year, I think, since it started. And you guys had that booth. I tanked down, I think, 2 full bags. Now, I'm a mild guy, so even the mild was getting me a little on the tongue. And I'm like, man, this stuff is amazing. The bacon, I got to tell you, the bacon.
The bacon is the best. That right there, the maple bacon, man. Like I tell people, one bite is so good it'll make you slap your mama. So yeah, the maple bacon is awesome. It's real bacon. It's uncured bacon. We put our secret little maple, old-fashioned maple seasoning on it, and cook it, and it's good. It's like eating candy. Now, it's not healthy for you if you're especially trying to get it for a competition or something, but for a treat, it doesn't get any better.
You get a little protein, but a little extra too, huh?
Yep.
So that is wickedcutz.co, correct?
Yes, actually wickedcutz.com now. It's
okay.
Wicked Cutz with a Z.
Wickedcutz.com is here. I do want to go into how you started an affiliation with Gas. If you don't mind sharing that, I don't know exactly when you started partnering with them, but I know that you have a lot of training gear. And really, why was that a good fit for the Branch Warren brand?
Well, see, I think it's been 12 years ago. I partnered up with Gas. So what happened with that? Per Bernal, who was probably, I'll say most people would agree, he's the #1 photographer in the fitness industry. He did all the cover shots for Muscular Development back when MD was #1, and I had an exclusive contract with MD. So, and he did all the stuff. He did stuff with Muscle Tech back in the day. Those years I was with Muscle Tech, and so he's from Sweden, and he was telling me, he asked me if I had a clothing contract, sportswear contract. I said no. He goes, well, I've got this company out of Sweden. They're a regional brand, but they're wanting to go global and come to the United States eventually. And he goes, I think you're a perfect fit for them. They're hardcore, training brand, and based out of Stockholm. So he knew the owner really well, and he put us together. And I guess it was 2008 probably. I met him at the Arnold Classic, and he flew me and my wife to Stockholm that year, and came on board. And they were in, I don't know, just a few countries, just in Northern Europe, Norway, Sweden, Finland, Denmark, just a few of the northern countries. And fast forward 12 years is my career. About 2008 is when my career really took off, and I got second at Olympia, won the Arnold's, and just went on. I had a period of time there I just did really well, and so as my career took off, my brand grew. We grew together, and I think they're in 103 countries now. They moved their headquarters to Dallas. They have Destination Dallas, which it's a gym, plus it houses the headquarters for Gas and Better Bodies, which is their sister company. And they've done really well, and we both grew together. It's been a fantastic relationship. Michael Johansson, who's the CEO, is not only is he my boss in the company, but for Gas, but he's also a good friend. So it's been a great relationship, and I think the reason I stayed with them is because their slogan is no compromise, and they're a hardcore brand. I give you an example of what I'm talking about is their social media. They were trying to grow their social media, and they asked me to do videos. So I made this video one time as a leg video, and I knew it was gonna be a good video. I knew when I posted it, it would get hundreds of thousands of views, and it would do really good. And I said, hey, do you guys want to post this stuff? And of course, it's just me being me, dropping 4-letter words and going nuts, lifting weights, and they kind of hesitated. And I guess the inside story was they took it to him and they said, hey, look, do you want to post this? They were worried about offending people or this or that. And he says, Gas is not for everybody. He goes, we're hardcore, and we're going to post it. If they don't like it, they don't have to watch it. And they posted it, and it was the #1 video they ever posted. And that kind of sums up the whole mindset for them. And of course, that fits my mindset perfect. And it's been a great relationship.
Well, Michael is also someone who, we've been in touch with, and, you probably know a lot more, but, I guess what I really saw in just kind of following you, I've seen a lot of things growth wise that you're willing to take chances and take risks. Now, a lot of people say hard work, and I've been listening to a lot of athletes, especially. They're like, well, you work hard, you'll get there. Well, if you work smart, you'll get there too. And it sounds like you've done a really good job of putting teams of people around you that are the best in their field, which essentially makes you successful. So how do you go about picking those teams?
Well, I was a young man, and most successful person I've ever known. He called me up out of the blue, and he's one of those calls that he calls you and you're like, wow, why is he calling me, right? And he said he wanted to take me to lunch. He was driving through town, so I canceled my schedule and went had lunch with him, and we sat there for 2 hours, and he knew way more about me than I ever dreamed he would have known. And he said, he goes, if you want to be successful in bodybuilding or business, he goes, you need to surround yourself with successful people because it's contagious. He goes, you surround yourself with bums, that's contagious also. And he said, he goes, you're associating with some people that are, for lack of a better word, bums. And he goes, you need to get them out of your life and surround yourself with better people. And I thought about it. Now that's easier said than done, right? Because you change who you associate with and try to have somebody they might be your friend, but they're a loser, right? And that's hard to just say, hey, later. It's easier. You can say it, but doing it is the follow through is the hard part. And I thought about what he said, and I respected this man so much because he was so successful. And he's the kind of man when he spoke, everybody got quiet and listened. And I thought about it, and I was like, you know what, he's right. And I made that decision, and I changed my life, and I got some people out of my life that were not going anywhere in life, and I surrounded myself with successful people, and within a year, my whole life turned around, and I became. I look back in that 1 year period, it was amazing how my life had progressed in every area. From my bodybuilding career, I turned pro, financially, my business, everything had turned around, and that's something that's if you want to be successful, you got to be around winners, because it's contagious. And same thing being around losers, hang out with losers, that's contagious too, because they'll pull you down with them if you let them.
I appreciate you being raw and authentic about that, because a lot of times, you are going to hang around the people that you're comfortable with. And if you realize that, if you're the sum of the 5 people that you hang around the most and you're at the top, you better find a new 5 real quick. And, that's a lot easier said than done, because it is hard to part with relationships and move into new relationships. What would you say to new athletes? Let's say they're coming on, they might think a little more of themselves, and they think they're entitled to sponsorships, and sponsorships frankly don't exist anymore. We talked about that last week on the show. It's mainly ambassadorships. It's mainly companies who are looking to partner with certain athletes that might have a marketable look, but also the right attitude. What would some of the things be, for example, for a GASP ambassador? I know you might not have Wicked Cutz yet. What would you think companies look for in a great ambassador to represent?
I think, GASP is doing very good. They've got 3 levels of ambassadorships. They've got tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. Well, tier 1 is me, Johnny, Sean Clarita, Gus Cisternino, those guys. There's only about, 6, 7, 8 of us, maybe. Tier 2 athletes, they've got big social media followings usually. Maybe they haven't enjoyed the success that we did. And to be a tier 1 athlete with GASP, for instance, you don't necessarily have to be a Mr. Olympia or Arnold Classic champion. You could not ever win a show, but the right combination, you could still be there, right? The tier 2 guys, there's probably 120 of them, guys and girls, and then the tier 3, there's several thousand. But and it's just it depends on, you possess some qualities, Just because you're a tier 3, don't mean you can't move up to tier 1, right? So, but it's different than what it was back in my day. Back in my day, you were a champion, you won the big shows, the companies were going to come knocking on your door, and you'd have a publishing contract, a supplement contract, clothing contract, equipment contract, all these things, and life was good, man. As long as you stayed on top or winning and stayed at the top 5 of the Olympia, life was good. And my generation in that regard hit it perfect. Me, Jay, Kai, Phil, all the guys. It was a good time to be a bodybuilder. The guys in the 90s changed everything and brought that about, and then we reaped the benefits of it. So but it's a different story now, man. As far as getting sponsorships, it's very hard for the athletes. I think there's probably more opportunity out there than there was because of social media, but it takes the right kind of person. Self-promotion, if you're not a natural at it or used to it, it's hard to do. It's hard to get out there and promote yourself. It's something that a lot of people struggle with. And just by definition, usually bodybuilders are introverts. And, bodybuilding it's a solitary deal. You spend it's just you and the gym and the weights and the diet. And, you become very self-centered because it's all about you. And so that makes you be, just by definition, I think you become kind of an introvert. So when you have to do self-promote, you got to be an extrovert. And that's hard to do. The guys who are successful with it and they build their following, they do really well. And they don't have to compete. You know, the guys and girls, some of the people in our industry that do the best financially don't even compete. And that's different than what back in my day. You know, if you went to the big shows, the Expos, FIBO, the Olympia, Arnold, the longest lines, the biggest crowds were around the top 5, 6 guys. It's a different story now. So, and social media has changed everything. You know, publishing contracts don't exist. The magazines are basically gone. Supplement companies, you know, back in the day, it was dominated by 5 or 6 really big companies. Now there's hundreds of companies. Even the big companies, are a piece of the pie has gotten much smaller. And so getting a contract is, you know, much harder. So I'm currently with Apollo Nutrition, a great company based out of Jersey. Apollo Gym is also owned by the same guys, and Robert and Carolina. It's been a complete pleasure working with those guys. They've got some great products, and you know, it's just all these years after being retired, I'm still relevant in the industry, and you know, even though I'm in to have my own company and do my own thing, I still like to give back as much as I can to the sport and stay involved in the sport. So never forget where you came from.
You bring up great points, and I'm hoping that athletes understand that anybody who wants to be on stage doesn't necessarily mean you have to be successful to be on stage to be influential. And, you know, it looks like a lot of these guys fade out. You have actually, I think, more catapulted your career in being in the limelight, just in a different fashion. It's not on the bodybuilding stage, but it's on the business stage. And that is the smartest thing that you can do. What would you give tip-wise? Because you mentioned it's very hard to build yourself up. And, you know, a lot of times third-party endorsement goes a long way. Who did you attach yourself to in the beginning before you became Branch Warren, the name?
Well, in the beginning, you know, my generation came up, you know, the supplement companies promoted you. You know, they spent a ton of money, you know, promoting you. If you were one of the top guys, they're going to promote you. The organization itself is going to promote you. You know, if you're the Arnold Classic champion, you're going to get a lot of free publicity just because you're the champ, and rightfully so. Then, you know, you had publishing contracts. You know, had an exclusive contract with Muscular Development for all those years. And of course, you had Flex Magazine was the biggest competitor. You had Iron Man, and there was a couple other, I think Muscle Mag up in Canada. So you had, you know, at least four magazines. I think I'm missing somebody that were out there, and they promoted you. You know, every time you did a show, they had, you know, big spreads, layouts. The supplement companies had, you know, they do multi-page advertisements. I mean, I remember opening up those magazines and I'd see pictures of myself throughout the magazine. It was crazy. You know, I think one time my wife counted how many different ads I was in. You know, then, you know, I had Gasp, and same thing. They were big with promoting, and you know, getting a cover of a magazine was like a big deal, right? So you know, every grocery store, convenience store, airport store in the country, there you were. So it was a pretty cool thing. Now all that's changed. So you've got to be good with social media. You got to build that following, and I think it's important too to build a quality following. You know, and I'm going to throw this out there. There's girls out there that have millions of followers, but it's all TNA, right? So companies look at that and, oh yeah, look, she's got 6 million followers, and you try to get her to endorse a product, nobody cares because they're there for one thing. So you can get somebody who has 30,000 followers, but they have a great following and great interaction because, you know, the people following her is for a reason, you know, not just to look at her. So I think, yeah, same thing applies to all the athletes. You know, you can have, just because you have a big following doesn't necessarily translate into sales, and, you know, translate into good, you know, interaction and with your followers. So I think that's a big thing companies look at. So, you know, you got to find your niche. You know, for me, it was just the hardcore training and just being real, saying it like it is, and just be yourself. You know, that's some advice I gave the other day. You know, just be. People's like, well, how do we build our following and our brand? I go, just be yourself, be real, and don't act. Don't worry about the lighting and the camera and all that so much. Just be yourself. And I go, some of the best videos I've ever done were just with a cell phone, you know, and just be yourself. And I think people, when you have passion and purpose, and that people feel it and they see it and they respond to it.
You know, I think you don't have an issue ever being authentic or genuine or real because you're just the way you are. And, you know, a lot of guys, when, you know, they're on stage, they're one person. When they're off stage, they're another. And I think that everyone has always had the utmost respect for you. You know, they appreciated you shooting straight. You know, it wasn't fluff, anything coming out of your mouth. We talked about this last week, you know, all this TNA going on. Have an organic following, and you don't have to show everything in order to get it. And, you know, someone's going to resonate with, you know, what you're putting out there. They're going to align themselves with people they can relate to. And the fake stuff is not what people can relate to these days. What are some of your, I guess, what is the future like for you in business, in life, for the Warrens?
My future, I think looking forward to a very long relationship. I think my relationship with Gasp, instead of after 12 years, I think it's just beginning. Instead of a lot of people think, all right, 12 years, you've been retired for a number of years, it's probably at the end. I think my relationship with Gasp is just beginning. And I have the same feeling with Apollo Nutrition. It's a very similar company to Gasp and a very similar attitude in the way they do business. And, you know, I think I can see myself being around for many, many years in those roles with those companies. My main focus is my company, Wicked Cutz. You know, we have our 3-year anniversary in May. You know, we're doing really well. I think we grew over 300% this past year, especially as crazy as 2020 has been for everyone. We're very blessed to have that kind of success that we had last year. And 21 is starting off even better. So I'm putting a lot of focus. I'm here every day in the office working. So I'm involved in most aspects of the company. So sales and marketing. And, you know, I remember Black Friday and Cyber Monday and all that. We were so swamped. Me and Scott were in the back packing orders in the warehouse. So, you know, whatever you got to do, you got to do it, right? So I love it. It's a challenge for me. And, you know, you just put that same drive and determination into that you do in the gym, and you're bound to be successful. So definitely going to continue pushing ahead with Wicked Cutz. I'm having a blast doing it. And I love my crew that we've assembled up here. And of course, you know, I'm still in the gym. Me and Johnny, believe it or not, me and Johnny still train together. We did back yesterday and crippled ourselves almost. So, you know, he was like, damn, dude, we still got it. I'm like, yeah, I know. And I go, it's just a matter of turning it on. So we had a couple young guys training with us, and we got kind of hyped up at the beginning. And Johnny did something. I was like, this motherfucker. And so so I stepped up, and then it just like the old days, right? So we still get after it when we want to. And, you know, that's something we talked about today was, you know, some people trained because they were bodybuilders. I was a bodybuilder because I love to train. And, you know, I know I can say that on behalf of Johnny. The dude loves to train. And, you know, we're both done. We're not going to step on stage again, but we love to train, man. It's fun. You know, you go to the gym, you train hard. It feels good, right? I mean, it's kind of that sick thing. It's painful, but it feels good too, right? So it's a sick deal, but it is what it is. So, you know, we kind of talked, I remember a while back, I said, hey, man, we're not competing no more. Maybe we should tone it down a little bit. Well, that lasted about a day, and it just ain't the same, right? So people ask, why do you train so hard? I'm like, man, I love this shit. There ain't nothing else I'd rather do. So, you know, we get our workouts in, and we, you know, he's got his organization he's building with powerlifting, doing really well, because I've got my business and, you know, my responsibilities to the family and to Paula and Gasp. So stay very busy. So I think one of the positive things that came out of last year was not having to travel. The year before 19, I was away from home almost 4 months. I was in Europe and India and China and South America and all over the States and just doing everything. And this past year, I've been home. I didn't travel at all for the first time in 20 years. And that's been good, man. I've definitely grown closer to my daughter, and you know, being home every day and not missing any of her games or events and things like that. So that's been a blessing. So there's always a silver lining in everything. You just gotta look for it.
So I heard that you might like guns and maybe hunting. How often do you get to do that now that you have a company?
Well, I have my own shooting range at my farm. So I've got a farm just about 45 minutes east of Dallas. So have a gun range. We actually teach. I partnered up with one of my good friends and started I provide the land, and these guys are all SWAT team officers, and, you know, most of them are ex-military. You know, so we have some really, really badass instructors out there, and so they teach self-defense classes, concealed carry classes, things like that. So got a pretty cool range. So I love to shoot, love to hunt. So I built a range out there, and then we got together, started talking. So we upgraded it tremendously, and so I've got my own little personal range out there, which is really cool. We got all kinds of cool stuff, a shoot house and vehicles and all this stuff. So, it's just fun. If anybody's never shot, don't judge it till you try. Because I've taken a lot of people out there that have never held a gun in their life, and after 3 or 4 hours of shooting, they're like, "This is fun." I'm like, that's why we do it. So it's just cool. So of course, I'm an avid hunter. I was on a hunting show for 5 years, the Hit List, back in the day, and I did a lot of bow hunting, and as well as some rifle hunting. And I started hunting when I was 5 years old. So that's something that's just part of my life and what I've always done, grew up with. So
very cool. Well, just to wrap up in closing, first of all, just appreciate the time. I appreciate the fact that we got a chance to connect, and I know that a lot of people know of you, but they don't know about you. It's very easy to put a persona on Instagram or, just know about the past, but, really just to know the person and just get down to the core. Sounds like truly you're a family man. You're someone who likes hobbies, loves to travel, and still continues to do what they love. And you made a living at it and a career at it. What advice would you give to just all the folks watching who might be struggling, especially being, we have a worldwide audience. We have people in the UK right now who are still locked down. We've got new athletes who've never stepped on stage who are going to for the first time. We've got veterans, we've got pros, we've got, everybody. What would you say, to them, especially going forward? You were able to manage and you were able to get through the different challenges that got thrown at you as a businessman, as a family man. What are some of the tips that you would give?
Dude, life ain't fair. I've said this, I think I made a t-shirt out of it. I learned this at a very young age. Life ain't fair, and no one owes you a damn thing. Seriously. These people that think that they're entitled to something, or the government owes them something, or somebody owes them something, they don't. You're wrong. Nobody owes you nothing, dude. But you can have anything you want if you're willing to go out and work for it. I learned that too. I learned it at a young age, and I think it's much easier to learn that lesson when you're young than when you get older. It's a little bit hard to learn that when you get older, I think. But if you're willing to, if you want something in life, you can achieve anything you want to achieve if you're willing to put the work in. Figure out what it is you want to do, come up with a plan to get there, and then go do it. And realize anything worth achieving doesn't come easy. If you're trying to be Mr. Olympia or be a world-class bodybuilder, it ain't gonna happen overnight. It's gonna take a decade or longer, probably longer, a lot longer. But somebody does it, right? When I started doing it, if somebody told me what the odds were of me doing what I did, I don't know, man. I might not have done it, but being young and being naive is a blessing, I think, when you're young, because I saw Ronnie going rising up and doing it, and I was like, well, he did it. Why can't I do it? So I went and did it. And I don't want to oversimplify it, but sometimes if you overthink it, you talk yourself out of it. And just pick a goal that you want to do. Be realistic about it. If you're trying to be an astronaut and you have an IQ of 80, you're probably going to make it. But but be realistic with your goals. But if it's realistic, and most importantly, if you believe in yourself, you can do it. If you don't believe it yourself, ain't nobody else gonna believe you, and you ain't gonna get it done. And there's always gonna be naysayers around you. There's gonna be lots of people. More people gonna say you can't do it than say you can. So don't listen to them. Focus on yourself. And my goal of being a pro bodybuilder, I kept to myself. I really didn't tell a lot of people. I think a lot of people figured it out on their own. Obviously that's what I was working for, but I kept it to myself because I wasn't doing it for them. I was doing it for me. And just remember, no one's going to give you anything, and life ain't always fair. Sometimes bad shit happens, and sometimes some really unfair stuff happens to you. But what are you going to do? Overcome it, get over it, and work harder.
Exactly right. And if people wanted to follow you, how can they follow you? What's the best way?
At The Branch Warren on Facebook and Instagram. Of course, my website at work is wickedcutz.com. And then, of course, my website is The Branch Warren. So go on there. We've got all kinds of gear, exclusive videos. You can contact me, all these kind of things. You can direct message me on Instagram. Is probably the best way to get in touch with me. I get a ton of direct messages. No guarantee I'm going to respond to you, but I do respond almost every day to quite a few. So that's the best way to get hold of me.
Well, Branch, I wanted to finish this on the dot right at the hour. Thank you just so much for taking the time. A lot of times we say things and don't realize what the ripple effect is. we have people who listen and they absorb it. And then 5 years later, you meet them and you're like, hey, I remember when you said this. And you're like, I don't remember, but I'm glad it made a difference. And, I know you make a big difference and impact, not only in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, but really just all around the world with what you're doing, because you're a great model for what bodybuilding can be as a springboard. It's not the end all be all. And that's what I love about you.
Well, I think that's the biggest thing with these young guys. I tell them, I tell everybody, that I meet young guys and girls all the time. Like, I want to do, be a pro and do what you did. Great, go do it, get it. But at the same time, get an education, get a career, start your own job, and because you can do both, right? You can still have a successful career, run your business side of the bodybuilding thing, and also have a career, have a job or a business, because it's not going to last forever. And there's a few people that achieve enough success and they can live beyond their careers, but most don't. So the average, career of a bodybuilder or any pro athlete is only a couple of years. So if you're blessed enough to have a long career and be successful, then you got to reap the benefits of it, and you got to work. So nothing comes for free. And as any athlete knows, you don't win a championship. It ain't easy. I don't care what championship it is. It's a lot of work. And same thing with business, man. To be successful, takes a lot of thought, a lot of effort, a lot of work. So, but it can be done. So.
Very good. Well, we're looking forward to seeing you at your next show. When is your show, by the way?
So I've got the Branch Warren Texas Legends is April 10th at the Will Rogers Coliseum in Fort Worth at the Roundup Inn. It's got all the classes of the NPC are in there, from the new one, the wellness division, as well as bodybuilding, fitness, figure, physique, men's and women's, bikini, all that. Then we also have Johnny has his new league, the MPLC, which is a powerlifting league. So they're doing a powerlifting and strongman competition. So they'll have the powerlifting competition there at our show as well. And of course, we have a small expo. Now the big show, June 26th, the Branch Warren Classic in Houston, will be our 15th year, I believe, to put that show on. So this last year we had to move it to Fort Worth because of the COVID restrictions and shutdown. It just wasn't possible to pull it off in Houston like we normally do. So we're back in Houston, back at the NRG Center. We've got about 200,000 square feet. We've got at this moment 9 other events. We've got his powerlifting meet. We got powerlifting meets, strongman, jiu-jitsu tournament, CrossFit tournament, arm wrestling tournament. Probably gonna bring midget wrestling back this year. The kids love that. That's my favorite. You've been to it, you've seen it. So of course, in it, obviously the centerpiece of the show is the bodybuilding competition with all divisions. It's a national qualifier. We usually have a long list of athletes that went on to turn pro. After that event, a lot of times we get some of these athletes in their best condition, and they go on a couple weeks later to the USA and get their pro cards. So usually have some. We always have a couple people that go on and do really well at the USA. So it's a great event. It's an all-day event. We have the expo during the day. We have 150 different booths set up in addition to all the events going on. So it's an all-day event. Doors open at 8 a.m. and usually goes on until 10, 11 o'clock at night.
Well, interestingly enough, you might not
go to get tickets, entry information, vendor information. Go to metroflexevents.com. Again, that's www.metroflexevents.com. Get entry information, vendor information, and tickets.
Very good. You were the reason why, one of the biggest reasons why I started promoting shows. And even though we're in different organizations, I saw how you run things. And it's very apparent why you're so successful in not only the show, quote, business, not show business, but also just any business that you put your mind to. So thank you for the leadership, and thank you for the role model and example that you have provided, and, really making your events premier events, because it's really a great thing for us new guys to follow, and hopefully, be able to possibly be at your level one day. That's the goal.
Well, I appreciate you I appreciate you saying that, and thank you. And thank you for having me on the show today.
Yes, sir. Branch Warren, everyone. And The Branch Warren, follow him on Instagram, Facebook, or thebranchwarren.com on your website. Guys, really enjoyed the conversation today and really enjoyed our guest, as we will be continuing this series with other greats. I don't know if we can top Branch Warren yet. I know it's going to be tough, but man, we really enjoy the time. And we will look forward to seeing you same time, same place. We'll be broadcasting out of Las Vegas, Nevada next week. And we will look forward to seeing you then. Take care.